Primal Kitchen is known for outrageously delicious sauces and condiments, and now their pure avocado oil can be a staple in your kitchen too. With its high smoke point, neutral flavor, and healthy fats, it's perfect for grilling, baking, sautéing, marinating, whatever you're cooking. Primal Kitchen pure avocado oil gets the job done. Pure, quality tested, and trusted. Grab a bottle at Walmart stores nationwide or online at walmart.com.
The college football playoff is everything.
Toughness, growth, sacrifices.
Laser focus.
This is where I think
everything you got, all damn day.
The attention to detail is like none other.
Be physical, be violent. We are the winners.
Tulane takes on Ole Miss, followed by James Madison in Oregon.
It's time to bring it.
First round coverage of the college football playoff presented by Allstate. Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on TNT and HBO Max. Are you ready?
Let's go!
And away we go, episode 1221 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Thursday, December 18th, 2025. It is the day of a monster game on Thursday Night Football. The 11-3 Los Angeles Rams at the 11-3 Seattle Seahawks. Thursday night at 8:15 to begin Week 16 of the NFL's 2025 regular season. These two teams have been the two best teams in the NFL so far this regular season, for which the Seahawks are number one in the league in total DVOA, and the Rams are number two. Now, the second game of Week 16, not quite as much juice, but that game is our game. The 4-10 Washington Commanders versus the 9-5 Philadelphia Eagles at Northwest Stadium on Saturday evening at 5. Hey, a salute to right guard Samuel Cosmi. The Commanders on Wednesday morning announced that they have named Cosmi the winner of the team's 2025 Ed Block Courage Award. The honor is given annually to a player from each NFL team who displays extraordinary courage in the face of adversity. Cosmi this season has returned off suffering a torn right ACL in the Commanders' 45-31 win at the Detroit Lions this past January 18th in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Man, January 18th. So we're now exactly 11 months removed from that game, that glorious game, what was the biggest win for Washington since winning Super Bowl 26 all the way back on January 26, 1992, the 37-24 win over the Buffalo Bills at the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome in Minneapolis, Minnesota. 11 months ago today was that win at the Lions to advance to the NFC Championship game. A few things with our team have happened since that game. Hello and welcome to this Thursday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Coming up on the show, a deep dive on the Commanders shutting down their QB1, Jayden Daniels, for the rest of the season, as I'll speak with Barry Svrluga, columnist for the Washington Post. Barry just wrote a very interesting column about the shutdown. We're going to examine the shutdown from a variety of angles, including the implications of the shutdown for Daniels and who exactly decided on the shutdown. Also, Barry will give us his breakdown of why the Commanders are having such a disappointing season, and he'll give us his assessment of what the Washington Nationals are doing with Paul Taboni as president of baseball operations, as Barry knows the Nats extremely well. But our principal focus with Barry will be the shutdown of Jayden Daniels. Barry Svrluga coming up shortly. Before our chat with Barry, next segment, some Commanders conversation, including examination of the team's latest injury report for the game against the Eagles, and discussion of comments from offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury on the team shutting down Jayden Daniels for the rest of the season. Why tight end Ben Sinnott in the 29-21 win at the New York Giants this past Sunday afternoon got just one target. The lack of targets for running backs Jacory, Croskey-Merritt, and Chris Rodriguez Jr. Who called the play that resulted in receiver Terry McLaurin's 51-yard touchdown reception in the win at the Giants, and more. And also on the show, I'll talk Georgetown basketball and Old Dominion football. The Hoyas They on Wednesday night won at Marquette 78-69 in their Big East opener for the 2025-2026 regular season. ODU, it on Wednesday evening concluded a 2025 season in which the Monarchs went 10-3 overall, a 24-10 win over South Florida in the Staff DNA Cure Bowl at Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. Before we get to some feedback, reports on Wednesday evening that the Washington Nationals are hiring a general manager to work under President of Baseball Operations Paul Taboni. Ani Kilambi, who had been an assistant general manager with the Philadelphia Phillies since November 2021. He had been running the Phillies analytics department. The person who he succeeded? My brother. Yes, I've talked about this a little bit. My brother, Andy Goldie, he was the Phillies Director of Baseball Research and Development, February 2016 to July 2021. Yeah, my brother used to run the analytics department for the Phillies. My brother helped with the hiring of and transition to this guy, Ani Kilambi, who now is becoming Nats GM. And I was texting with my brother about this on Wednesday evening, but the Nats hiring Ani Kilambi as GM is a big deal. He previously had been with the Tampa Bay Rays, one of the most forward-thinking, one of the most progressive teams in not just MLB, but all of sports. Ani Kilambi is just 31, so yet another young person with a big-time role in Nats baseball operations. And yeah, Ani Kilambi is a big analytics guy. This is yet another sign that the Nats are doing what I was begging them to do for years: go all in on analytics. This is very exciting news if you're a Nats fan. Also, the Baltimore Orioles, they on Wednesday afternoon announced having agreed with starting pitcher/relief pitcher Albert Suarez on a minor league contract. This off on November 21st, having announced having non-tendered Suarez. I'm glad to see the O's bring this guy back. Albert Suarez had an injury-plagued 2025 season, what was his age 35 season, but he in MLB's 2024 regular season registered 2.2 wins above replacement for Baseball Reference. He over 32 games, including 24 starts, totaled 133 and 2/3 innings, and had an ERA of 3.70 and an ERA plus of 105. And he did this off having not pitched in an MLB regular season game since September 2017. Albert Suarez was a really valuable player for the O's in that 2024 season. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Stanley Evans on the Commanders shutting down Jayden Daniels. Right, Stanley? What's up, dude? Hope everything is going well. I honestly wonder if DQ is getting pressure from somewhere else about why JD5 isn't playing, or if this truly is Dan's own decision. The crazy part is Snyder and RG3 are long gone, yet this feels exactly like 2013 all over again. That entire situation was handled so poorly that you can't help but wonder if that trauma is why the team is being overly cautious now. Either way, this is ridiculous. As big of a fan as I am, I have zero interest in watching a Mariota-led offense when we're 4-10 with nothing left to play for. I want to see Jayden against division rivals, not a backup quarterback in a lost season. This is boring, this is uninspiring, and this takes the life out of the fan base. This might honestly be the worst season that I've lived through as a fan. Maybe it's recency bias, but every week someone is hurt, and JD5 is out again. I wasn't on board with firing DQ or Peters because doing so felt silly and premature, but this regime has to show a real plan and real progress next season. If not, it's sayonara and time for a completely new direction. I'm still hoping like crazy the team turns this around and that this season was just a one-off nightmare, but right now, it's hard to feel anything but drained. Have an awesome Christmas and New Year, my guy. Thank you for that, Stanley. Drained is a very appropriate word for where we as fans are with this Commanders season. Drained. I totally agree on having a hard time getting pumped for more Marcus Mariota quarterbacked Commanders games. Nothing against Mariota. He's a terrific QB2, but him being the team's starting quarterback over its final 3 games of this season instead of Jayden Daniels makes the games so much less compelling and only furthers my belief in, my commitment to Operation Lose Out 2.0. During our conversation with Barry Svrluga, I am going to get into who exactly made the call to shut down Jayden Daniels. A lot of possibilities, but as bad as this season is, I still would say that the worst season in franchise history, in my opinion, is the Redskins' 2013 season, because not only was that team horrendous, but we had all of the behind-the-scenes politics that came to light regarding owner Dan Snyder and executive vice president / head coach Mike Shanahan and quarterback Robert Griffin III. Also, the 2013 Skins did not have all of the injuries that the 2025 Commanders have. Also, the 2013 Skins were one of the worst teams in NFL history in terms of special teams. The 2025 Commanders are actually quite good on special teams. So to me, 2013 is the worst season in franchise history. The Skins in the 2013 regular season went 3-13 with a point differential of minus 144. The Commanders in this 2025 regular season are 4-10 with a point differential of minus 84. There was an ugliness with the 2013 Skins that we thankfully do not have with the 2025 Commanders, at least not yet. Do you remember the late season Mike Shanahan press conference at which he announced the benching / shutdown of RG3 and just went off on a bunch of things? December 2013, the dying days of Shanahan's time with the Skins. What I'll never forget about that presser is his all-time line of, quote, "What I'm trying to do is be as honest as I can, and I don't normally do that," end quote. He admitted after all of these years that he had been lying to us for all of these years. Here was that line.
What I'm trying to do is be as honest as I can, and I don't normally do that.
Yeah, man, that is an all-timer. What I'm trying to do is be as honest as I can, and I don't normally do that. Think about the logic behind that. Okay, I've been lying to you for all of these years, but now, this time, I'm actually telling the truth, so please believe me. That was great. Email from Frank Radcliffe in England on Commanders interior defensive lineman Daron Payne. Writes Frank, "Hi Al," or "Al Galdi sent ya," as I say. Thanks for keeping me up to date with Commander stories as I live in England and come over for a few games most seasons. I was dismayed by Daron Payne's performance against the Giants on Sunday. He recorded no tackles or sacks, and Willist Javon Kinlaw seemed to be double-teamed much of the game. Payne seemed to show little in the way of run defense, let alone rushing the passer. It would be interesting to hear my fellow Brit Mark Bullock's view after viewing the film. Belated happy birthday and keep up the great work on the show. Might see you in the UK for the Commies / Skins game next season. HTTR. Thank you very much for that email, Frank. Hey, it helps us out a lot if you support our great sponsors. And so when you go to them, please say that Al Galdi sent you. That's why we say that. Daron Payne plays a position that can be misleading regarding sacks and tackles, but here's something that catches my attention. Payne's overall grade per Pro Football Focus for the 29-21 win at the New York Giants this past Sunday afternoon was a mere 37.9. That's terrible. PFF grades are on a scale of 0 to 100. 60 is average. Now, the Commanders' defense in the game was good, and Payne played on 54% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. So there is a basic premise here of, hey, if you play a good bit for a defense in a game in which the defense did well, you must be doing something right. But yeah, Payne's overall PFF grade for the game was not good, backing up what Frank thought about Payne's performance. Daron Payne for this regular season has an overall grade per PFF of 62.8. That's slightly above average. He got off to a really good start. He has cooled off since. My bet is that the Commanders this coming off season do release Payne, as he, like interior defensive lineman Jonathan Allen last offseason, is a big-time salary cap cut candidate for this coming offseason. Daron Payne had the great 2022 contract season. The Commanders in March 2023 signed him to a big money contract extension, but he over 3 seasons since has been mid. He hasn't been necessarily a bad player, and he does continue to be a really durable player, but he has not been some special player. He has not performed at the level of the contract. Daron Payne, per OverTheCap.com, is tied for number 10 among all interior defensive linemen in the NFL in average annual value, AAV. $22.5 million. He, over the last 3 seasons, 2023 through 2025, has not performed at that level. Hey, Cash App. It is the best way to make sure that your financial transactions are safe. You this holiday season can stay one step ahead of scams and keep your money secure with Cash App. Cash App's 24/7 fraud monitoring helps detect and alert you for unusual card activity should someone gain access to your card, so you can act fast if something seems off. You also can lock or unlock your Cash App card instantly right in the app for extra control and peace of mind. And if you're about to send money to someone for a deal that's too good to be true, and Cash App flags the deal as a potential scam, Cash App will warn you before you send the money. Cash App is here for you, and for a limited time only, new Cash App customers can use Cash App's exclusive code to earn some additional cash for real. Just download Cash App, use the exclusive referral code SECURE10 in your profile, send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partner or partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures.
The college football playoff is everything.
Toughness, growth, sacrifices.
Laser focus.
This is where I think
Everything you got, all that day.
the attention to detail is like none other.
Keep physical. Keep fighting. We are the winner.
Tulane takes on Ole Miss, followed by James Madison in Oregon.
It's time to bring it.
First round coverage of the college football playoff presented by Allstate. Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on TNT and HBO Max. Are you ready?
Let's go.
December deal drops at Lowe's are wrapping up, but there's still time to snag something worth bragging about. Get up to 40% off select major appliances. And members save an additional $100 on a new and exclusive Samsung French door refrigerator, now just $18.99. Need new tools? Select tools and accessories are up to 45% off this week. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 12/24. While supplies last, selection varies by location. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. See Lowe's.com/terms for details.
We have the 4-10 Washington Commanders versus the 9-5 Philadelphia Eagles at Northwest Stadium this Saturday evening at 5 in Week 16 of the NFL's 2025 regular season. The Commanders practiced on Wednesday afternoon. 5 Commanders offensive players were on the team's injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice. Quarterback Jayden Daniels, he on Wednesday afternoon was a limited participant in practice for a second consecutive day, so he does continue to practice some, even though he, of course, is being shut down for the season due to his injured left elbow. Left tackle Laramie Tunsil, he on Wednesday afternoon was a limited participant in practice. He on Tuesday afternoon did not practice. He's dealing with an oblique injury that he suffered in the Commanders' 29-21 win at the New York Giants this past Sunday afternoon. Tight end Colson Yankoff, he on Wednesday afternoon did not practice for a second consecutive day. He's dealing with an ankle injury that he suffered in the win at the Giants. Running back Chris Rodriguez Jr., he on Wednesday afternoon was a full participant in practice for a second consecutive day. Good news, he for the win at the Giants was inactive due to a groin injury. And offensive tackle George Fant, he on Wednesday afternoon was a full participant in practice for a second consecutive day. He has been on the injury reports for this week due to a knee issue. 4 Commanders defensive players were on the team's injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice. Interior defensive lineman Eddie Goldman on Wednesday afternoon did not practice for a second consecutive day. He's dealing with a concussion that he suffered in the win at the Giants. Linebacker Bobby Wagner, he on Wednesday afternoon did not practice for a second consecutive day. He's dealing with a knee issue. Cornerback Jonathan Jones, he on Wednesday afternoon was a full participant in practice for a second consecutive day. He for the win at the Giants was inactive due to a rib injury. And edge defender Drake Jackson, he on Wednesday afternoon was a full participant in practice for a second consecutive day. He has been on the injury reports this week due to his knee and groin ailments. Commanders offense offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury. He late Wednesday morning did a pre-practice press conference. A topic at the presser, as you might have expected, was the team shutting down Jayden Daniels for the rest of the season. This was Kingsbury during the presser. Then you'll hear a follow-up exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Kingsbury. And then you'll hear a back and forth between Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic and Kingsbury.
DQ, and they came to a decision on it, and so that's kind of part of the game.
Is it hard to assess his season given the ins and outs and all that happened with the offense, or how would you go about assessing that?
Yeah, no doubt. I think with how it went, it's just hard to get an assessment, but he did all the things you can ask him as preparation and practice habits, things of that nature. Just was one of those years with inconsistency as far as availability, unfortunately.
Had he been able to play, what can a younger quarterback gain from, late season reps? I mean, what could he have gotten from that, you think?
Yeah, I think all in-game reps that you can get are valuable. There's no way you can simulate being out there and playing football, and so anytime you get those, you like to have them, but understand the situation. It just wasn't possible this year for him.
It doesn't seem like it to us, but you've been around Jayden more. Does it ever seem? Have you ever seen him have a lack of confidence because of what's going on? Do you ever worry about that as an OC?
No, I don't. I think these are things you have to go through as a young player. It's part of the deal, developing thicker skin and mental toughness through some of this adversity. But he's super competitive. He loves to play the game, and he'll be better for this and having to go through this and really manage it throughout the season.
When it comes to what Kliff Kingsbury said about how hard it is to evaluate Jayden Daniels' season, there just isn't a lot to evaluate. Daniels in this regular season is going to end up playing in just 7 of the Commanders' 17 games due to getting injured in 4 of the 7 games. And you dig deeper, he started and finished just 4 games, the last of which was the 25-24 walk-off loss to the Chicago Bears at Northwest Stadium on Monday Night Football on October 13th. That was Week 6. That ends up being the last game that he started and finished. That is remarkable. One of the fun activities of last season and this past offseason on this podcast was slicing and dicing and reveling in Jayden Daniels' stats from his all-time great 2024 rookie season. I don't know that it is even worth assessing his stats for this regular season, given how little he's going to end up playing. The sample size ends up being so small, to say nothing of him so often playing with a supporting cast depleted by injury. We on Wednesday morning had this exchange between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Kliff Kingsbury.
Kliff, you've obviously played the position, and as you mentioned, Jayden's availability has just been inconsistent this year. A lot of these injuries sometimes are just flukes. So is there a way you can improve on that, of just staying healthier?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you look around the league, and every year, we just had, Pat, I've never seen him miss a game for however long I've known the kid, and he's hurt his knee. So it happens in this league, and I don't think there's anything you can do to prepare for it. He works really hard taking care of his body in the weight room and things of that nature, and so just continue on that, and he'll get a fresh start next year.
It is the single biggest question with Jayden Daniels now. Is his injury-ruined 2025 season a sign that he's injury-prone, or is this season an aberration, a fluke, a blip, as I've been saying? Daniels' overall track record is one of durability. Over 5 seasons as a collegiate QB1, played in 55 of a possible 57 games. He last season played in all 20 of the Commanders' regular season and postseason games. He, prior to this season, had been very durable. And yes, Kliff Kingsbury knows Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes well. Mahomes, in the Chiefs' 16-13 home loss to the Los Angeles Chargers this past Sunday afternoon, suffered a torn left ACL. Kingsbury was Texas Tech head coach December 2012 to November 2018. He, as Texas Tech head coach, went just 35-40, but he was Mahomes' collegiate head coach. Patrick Mahomes was a Texas Tech quarterback for the 2014 through 2016 seasons. Also a product of the Big 12 is tight end Ben Sinnott. The Commanders took him in the second round of the 2024 NFL Draft out of Kansas State. The Commanders' number 1 tight end, Zach Ertz, of course, is on the reserve/injured list, on which he was placed on December 10th. This due to a torn right ACL that he suffered in the Commanders' 31-0 loss at the Minnesota Vikings on December 7th. On this podcast last week, talked about how Zach Ertz being done for the season means that it is time for Ben Sinnott to emerge, that I wanted him to be targeted a bunch over the rest of the Commanders' season. He in the win at the Giants had 1 target, 1 reception for 36 yards on 1 target, played on 57% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. He, for the game, had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 77. What is that about? Well, his blocking. Yes, disappointing to see him only get 1 target, but he in the game blocked well. And Kliff Kingsbury made a good point about Sinnott in the win at the Giants only getting the 1 target. We on Wednesday morning had this exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack and Kliff Kingsbury.
With Ben Sinnott, obviously, he had the huge catch late in the game. There was only target they ultimately did have. And I know earlier when Zach was playing, it was like, well, how's he? It's hard to get in there. In this case, what for you, was he more involved in the game plan that ultimately played out, or what are you going to need to see for him to be a bit more involved?
Yeah, I think we only had 10 completions, so there weren't a ton to go around, unfortunately. But I was really proud of that play. We got cover 0. We hadn't shown him that look in that scenario with that personnel group. We weren't anticipating. He stuck his foot in the ground and created space, so it was a big-time play. But, yeah, I think just how the game went, we weren't throwing it a ton, and so the opportunities weren't there. But he's continued to progress, and like I've said all along, when his opportunity has arisen in the game, he's stepped up.
Yeah, the Commanders' passing offense in the win at the Giants had an odd game. The Commanders' starting quarterback and QB2, Marcus Mariota, he completed just 10 of his 19 pass attempts, but he threw for 211 yards, a touchdown, and no interceptions. He had a yards per pass attempt of 11.11, which is outstanding, and had a yards per completion of 21.1, which is outstanding. Are you aware of how few targets running backs Jacory, Croskey-Merritt, and Chris Rodriguez Jr. have in this regular season? Croskey-Merritt has 9 receptions on 13 targets. Rodriguez has 1 reception on 2 targets. So running back Jeremy McNichols has 19 receptions on 24 targets. Croskey-Merritt and Rodriguez have been virtual non-factors in the passing game. We on Wednesday morning had this exchange between Ben Standig and Kliff Kingsbury.
Obviously, with the running backs, you always want to have somebody who can play on all 3 downs. But when you look at, like, Chris only has, I think, like 1 catch, 2 targets, and Bill few more, but still adjusting. What do you, going forward, what do you kind of need to see from those 2 guys to maybe develop into that, or is that something maybe not in their wheelhouse?
Yeah, I think they can. I think both guys are definitely functional in that role. We just feel like J-Mac right now on that down probably gives us our best chance of success. But if we needed either one of those guys, they could get it done. I think Bill's biggest skill is just continuing to master protections more than anything. But as far as catching the ball out of the backfield, he can definitely handle that.
And very interesting and telling that Kliff Kingsbury, unsolicited, brought up Jacory Croskey-Merritt needing to be better in pass protection. That clearly has been an area in which the team has seen him as being deficient. And then one more for you from Kliff Kingsbury on Wednesday morning. He gave assistant head coach / offensive pass game coordinator Brian Johnson credit for the Commanders' best play in the win at the Giants. First and 20 for the Commanders at their 49. Marcus Mariota had a 51-yard shotgun play action touchdown pass to receiver Terry McLaurin with 13:46 left in the fourth quarter. 31 of the 51 yards were air yards, and McLaurin spun out of an attempted tackle by cornerback Paulson Adebo en route to the end zone. Tremendous play. We on Wednesday morning had this exchange between Commanders insider David Harrison of SI.com and Kliff Kingsbury.
Hey, good afternoon, Coach. That first and 20 shot call to Terry McLaurin, just kind of the mindset behind being that aggressive in that space.
Yeah, that was Brian Johnson actually called that one. We were expecting some sort of split safety based on what we'd seen on tape, and so he said, hey, I think that's a good time to call it. And so we got a call, and Terry ran a great route, and we'd kind of set that up. We hit that play a couple times against Minnesota, and so it's kind of been set up, and so it was great thought by Brian in that moment.
Very gracious of Kliff Kingsbury to give Brian Johnson the credit for that play. That's Kingsbury being a good teammate and setting a good example and boosting morale. And I appreciate the humility that we have gotten from Kingsbury at his press conferences. He has not been afraid to be critical of his play calling, and he has been very willing to give other coaches credit for play calls. He last season gave credit to assistant quarterbacks coach David Blau in the play calling department. Hey, please consider subscribing to this podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you are already subscribing, thank you.
The college football playoff is everything.
Toughness, growth, sacrifices.
Laser focus.
This is where I think
Everything you got, all damn day.
the attention to detail is like none other.
Be physical. Be violent. We are the winners.
Tulane takes on Ole Miss, followed by James Madison in Oregon.
It's time to bring it.
First round coverage of the college football playoff presented by Allstate. Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on TNT and HBO Max. Are you ready?
Let's go.
When a child is in the hospital, family does whatever it takes to stay. At Ronald McDonald House, we give them a community of support, warm meals, and a place to rest. Because when a child is in the fight of their lives, family stays. And Ronald McDonald House stays with them.
Well, we in the Washington, D.C. area know plenty about shutdowns, right? We over the years have had plenty of government shutdowns. We in 2012 had the famous shutdown of Washington National starting pitcher Steven Strasburg. And we in 2025 now have the shutdown of Washington Commanders quarterback Jayden Daniels. Head coach Dan Quinn, he during his day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon announced that the team is shutting down Daniels for the rest of the season as he is not medically cleared off in the 31-0 loss at the Minnesota Vikings on December 7th, injuring his previously dislocated left elbow, though he suffered no structural damage. Daniels in the NFL's 2025 regular season is going to end up playing in just 7 of the Commanders' 17 games due to getting injured in 4 of the 7 games. I am very pleased to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast Barry Svrluga, columnist for the Washington Post. A terrific column that he wrote came out on WashingtonPost.com on Monday night. Headline, quote, "Shutting down Jayden Daniels opens up a lot of questions," end quote. Barry has been with the Post since 2003, has been a columnist for the Post since 2016. You can follow Barry on X at Barry Svrluga, and Svrluga is spelled Svrluga. Hey, Barry, how are you?
Great, Al. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to talk to you. Off your column that came out on WashingtonPost.com on Monday night, headline, quote, "Shutting down Jayden Daniels opens up a lot of questions," end quote. What to you are the most significant questions raised by the shutdown?
It's basically, what do you have in Jayden Daniels as your franchise quarterback? I mean, I think that was an undisputed thumbs-up superstar on the rise character coming into the 2025 season. And because he will have only played 7 games and parts of some of those 7 games in his second season, and really, quite frankly, was pretty uneven in most of those performances, I don't think you're in as confident a position as you were coming into the season going into 2026. And that's why I thought the last 3 or 4 games, 3 now, when he's banged up, when he does have an elbow that I'm sure hurts, we're an opportunity to kind of answer some of those questions. Now we're going to have no more data points going into the offseason. The offseason is going to be filled with a combination of questions that range from, can he stay healthy? What have you learned from about your playing style? And what's your potential here? It's an amazing list of things we didn't anticipate before the year started.
It's so true. It's so unfortunate. I still would like to think that the Commanders with Jayden Daniels have a superstar quarterback and that this has just been a one-off nightmare season. But there's no doubt that the conversation regarding Daniels now is different than that conversation a year ago. You on December 7th came out with a column, headline, quote, Psst. Even a healthy Jayden Daniels hasn't been very good, end quote. People can find that at WashingtonPost.com. Evaluating Daniels' actual play this season is so tricky, given that he has missed so much time due to injury, given that the Commanders' receiving core has been ravaged by injury, given that the defense has been hit hard by injury and has been really bad, etc. How can we evaluate Daniels' actual play this season?
Huge incomplete, I think. And some of that is Daniels' own health. That's probably the chief component. It's certainly the health of Terry McLaurin, his main target. Clearly, every time McLaurin has been out there, he shows how valuable he is to this team. And Daniels just hasn't had the reps with his best target to establish any sort of real chemistry this year. It's been in fits and starts. Do I believe the potential for Jayden Daniels to be a franchise quarterback, one of the top 5 players in the league? I do, but you don't know that for sure going into year 3. I think what we anticipated after this year was, okay, Jayden's the QB. He's the star. What does he need around him on both sides of the ball so that they can play what Dan Quinn always leans on, complementary football, to make this a successful entity going forward? I didn't think that you would have questions about Jayden himself at the center of that going into 2026, and now we do.
Dan Quinn, during his day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon, and then again during his pre-practice press conference on Tuesday afternoon, made it clear that Jayden Daniels has not been medically cleared, and that is the driving force behind him being shut down. He has not been medically cleared. The team has 2 consecutive short weeks, with this game against the Philadelphia Eagles at Northwest Stadium this Saturday evening at 5, and then the game against the Dallas Cowboys at Northwest Stadium on Thursday afternoon, December 25th, Christmas at 1. And so all of that, according to Quinn, is why the team is shutting down Daniels for the rest of the season. But behind closed doors at the Commanders team facility, BigBear.ai Performance Center in Ashburn, Virginia, do you think that the true reason for the shutdown is what Quinn has said, or is more the fear of Daniel suffering another injury, perhaps a serious injury in this lost season in which he already has been injured 4 times? And I guess what I'm getting at is this. If Jayden Daniels was medically cleared, might the team still be shutting him down for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think it sounds like they might still have shut him down anyway, Al. And I kind of take issue with the timing. I don't think, and I get it's a short week, right? And it's going to be back-to-back short weeks because they're going from Sunday to a Saturday and then Saturday to a Thursday, and that lessens practice time. I get all that. But Dan Quinn said on Monday, he's not cleared for contact now. Of course, he has to be cleared for contact. I'm not saying that he should play if he's not cleared by the doctors. My issue is, why do you have to say that on Monday if there's a possibility that he could be cleared on Friday, which they did once before. They cleared him on Friday and said he was going to start. Now, you could say, is that fair to Marcus Mariota? Should he be getting all the first team reps? Should he be getting the lion's share of work in practice? Fine. With all due respect to Marcus Mariota, this franchise isn't about him in 2026, 27, 30, 31. It's about Jayden Daniels. So I feel like they were a little premature in shutting him down, particularly this week. I do get, if you got to week 18, there's one game left and you're risking, Patrick Mahomes blowing out his knee and affecting the 2026 season. Sure, that's a risk that you might not want to take. But 3 more starts, to me, would be the potential for that would be significant, a significant amount of opportunity for him to establish a rhythm, reestablish what he was in 2025. Right now, we have no opportunity to do that.
During Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon, had a really interesting back and forth between a colleague of yours, Commanders insider Tom Shad of the Washington Post, and Quinn. Here was that back and forth.
Hey, Dan. To what extent, if any extent, was Josh involved in this decision?
Yeah, Adam and I obviously keep him in the loop on all the things that are going through it. So it's good. We continue to have dialogue with him. We meet on a regular basis before the games, Fridays, Mondays. So we have a constant dialogue, Tom. So that's helpful that it's not something that we have to go to on a on a big moment or anything. We just try to stay in a constant level of communication, and that has been really solid for us.
So just to clarify, this was a decision that you guys made and then notified him of, or am I correct on that?
Yeah, I guess that would be correct in the way that you'd say it. We talked and have discussions. I don't know if we notified him, but maybe a discussion's a better way to phrase that.
David Aldridge?
We certainly don't have that kind of juice to notify the owner. Yeah, I better clarify that.
Yeah, Dan Quinn to me sounded like he was being very careful with what he said and how he said what he said. I find this behind-the-scenes stuff fascinating. The decision to shut down Jayden Daniels for the rest of the season. How much of the decision was Dan Quinn? How much of the decision was general manager Adam Peters? How much of the decision was managing partner Josh Harris? Who do you think truly decided to shut down Daniels for the rest of this season?
So my read on that is exactly, it's loaded for us here in exchanges with ownership, right? Because we're scarred from the past of decisions being made at that level, whether that's taking Dwayne Haskins in the first round, whether it's siding with Robert Griffin III over the Shanahans, all of that stuff from the Dan Snyder regime kind of hangs over this. And what I think Tom's question was very smart, because you want to establish that, hey, the football people are making the football decisions and they are kind of informing Josh Harris and the ownership group of what that is. And that's not exactly the answer you got from Dan Quinn. Now, I will say that Quinn, while I don't think he's deceptive in any way, he doesn't speak in anything that resembles a linear kind of train of thought. He has a way of complicating things that don't need to be complicated. And I think he did that by saying, hey, we don't have the juice to just inform him of our decisions. What I'm willing to believe is that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and the people around them in football operations said, there's a risk reward thing here with Jayden. We don't think the reward is worth the risk. We have regular meetings with Josh Harris, our boss, signs the checks, is an important figure, has a right to have some input into his franchise. But I think it was part of their regular discussion of, Josh, this is what we're thinking, and maybe not expressed as, this is absolutely what we're going to do. I don't want to get so conspiracy theory oriented that I'm like, this is an edict from ownership, when I really don't know that that's the case.
Dan Quinn, during his pre-practice press conference on December 10th, to me, struck a different tone regarding potentially shutting down Jayden Daniels for the rest of the season. Quinn, during the presser, surprisingly revealed that Daniels was out for the game of the Giants and did not dismiss the notion of the Commanders shutting down Daniels for the rest of the season. Quinn previously had been fairly dismissive of the notion of shutting down Daniels for the rest of the season. So what changed? Well, it turned out he, in the loss at the Vikings, a game in which he returned from a 3-game absence caused by a dislocated left elbow, re-injured the left elbow, although he, according to Quinn, during his post-game press conference for that game, was cleared to go back into that game. That remains bizarre. That it ends up being that Daniels doesn't play again the rest of the season makes him being cleared to go back into that game, which he did not go back into, look so bad. Man, there is a lot to process with this situation.
Yeah, so I think if you're going to do the take them at their word part of it, and I'll get to the other side of it soon, but if we take them at their word, it's just a diminishing number of opportunities. 5 games left is different than 3 games left. 5 games left, when he said, that's 30% of our season, and I was totally on board with that. This is too much. You're putting this kid in bubble wrap going into 2026 if you're saying, well, we're out of it and it's too risky for him to learn the position, to learn it at game speed. At that point, he was Quinn was expressing how important game reps were. I think that's a real thing. And when you shrink it down and say he's not cleared this week, and then you've got the Christmas game and then the season ender in Philly, I can see a world where you're like, well, look, it's no longer 5 games of opportunity. It's just 2. And we don't think the risk reward is worth it. The more nefarious way is, somebody got in Quinn's ear and was like, no, we don't view this the same way you did. Is that possible? It totally is. I think that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters, I mean, my understanding is they talk about the team every day. It's not like, Adam's got his door shut at one end of the building and Dan's got his door shut at the other end of the building, and they're that's a partnership. So they've got to be arriving on the same page in some way, even if they're not on the same page. Is it possible that Adam Peters thought he should be shut down and Dan Quinn didn't? It is. It totally is. I mean, reasonable minds can disagree. I just don't think we know for sure how that dialogue went. And Quinn is the guy who's put on the spot because he has to meet with the media, 3 or 4 times a week. Peters doesn't have to and hasn't for quite some time.
Much more with Barry Svrluga in moments, but if you are planning a wedding or you know someone who is, check out or have that person check out cateringbyuptown.com. Catering by Uptown delivers not just delicious food of the highest quality, but also a flawless and memorable experience tailored to your special day. Catering by Uptown's team is dedicated to meeting your every need with elegance and precision. And if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. So also, Catering by Uptown is great for parties, so whether a birthday, an anniversary, a retirement, or a charity gala, Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Catering by Uptown is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. We're talking Commanders with Barry Svrluga, columnist for the Washington Post. Life happens fast. Jayden Daniels now has just 1 season left until he is contract extension eligible in the 2027 offseason. Right now is the biggest reason for the Commanders in that 2027 offseason not to sign Daniels to a mega money contract extension the durability concern, or is there also a performance concern?
I think it's durability. And I think if you go to the draft, like what were the questions about Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Jayden Daniels coming out of LSU? It was his slight frame and the way he played. And that first camp going into 2025, like how much time did we spend talking about, hey, Jayden, like, have you learned to slide? Do you know when to go down? How can you avoid a hit? I think those issues now dog him into year 3. I think, Al, even though I do question his performance this year, and I do think it's been inconsistent. I think ancillary factors have a bigger role to play in that. It's who was out there on the field with him. He hasn't made 4 consecutive starts in a row this year. Like there's been nothing that amounts to a rhythm. They, a tiny thing that seems tiny, like they let De'Ami Brown and Olamide Zaccheaus walk. Like, are they star receivers? No, but this team was relying on Noah Brown to fill in that role with the addition of Deebo Samuel. That guy's never healthy. Like, he didn't have a full complement of weapons, nor did he have continuity in playing time. So I think if I'm leaning one way or the other, I believe in the player and his ability and his work ethic and his competitiveness. That the question is going to be, as it pertains to an extension, can he come back in 2026 with a 16 or 17 game regular season like he produced his rookie year? That would alleviate a lot of those questions.
Looking at the Commanders' disappointing 2025 season overall, something that I think that we've all wrestled with is, okay, is this season simply mostly about horrible injury luck, or has this season revealed other problems and we shouldn't just write off the season to horrible injury luck? What's your analysis of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to slice that pie, like I'd probably put it at like 65-35 injury or 60-40 injury. But, think about that too. Like they put a lot of faith in Marshawn Lattimore in that trade with New Orleans last year. I mean, I think when they traded for him, they expected like, this is a guy we're going to extend because we've got our veteran lockdown corner. He didn't perform that way. There are misevaluations across the roster. I do think Dietrich Wise was going to be a really good player for him. He didn't play after week 2. Dorrance Armstrong was having a career year, was going to be their double-digit sack guy. He got hurt in whatever it was, week 7. Like, those things are real. But also what's real is that, like, they took Ben Sinnott in the second round of the draft, and he can't get on the field even in a world when Zach Ertz is done for the year. So I think it's a huge offseason for Adam Peters and his front office, because after last year, when they hit on essentially everything, every free agent move for sure, Jayden in the draft, maybe not so much. You thought Brandon Coleman was a player at that point. The faith was totally in the front office. I think the fan base's faith was right there. It's a very different position heading into the offseason that leads to 2026.
I on this podcast have wondered whether a time-honored tradition in Washington, D.C. area sports is about to continue. And that time-honored tradition is the late season or end of season expose by a media outlet like your employer, the Washington Post, on what went wrong for one of our teams in a disappointing season. We so many times in recent Commanders franchise history, at the end or near the end of a disappointing season for the team, have had some major report, sometimes multiple major reports on things that went wrong. And it is in these reports that we have gotten, anonymous quotes and anonymous sources and reveals of behind-the-scenes problems about which we had no idea. And what I've been wondering is one or more of these exposés for this team this season coming? Now, to be clear, there has been basically no indication that there are big-time behind-the-scenes problems with the Commanders, but as a veteran of this sports market, heck, as someone who has written about behind-the-scenes problems for our teams plenty of times, what do you think? Could some late season or end of season expose by a media outlet like your employer, the Washington Post, on what went wrong for the Commanders in their 2025 season be coming?
I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't dug into that in a way like I would have years ago when I was on the beat or helping the beat writers in position. But I think, Al, you're not wrong about that being a holiday tradition at the Post. It was if the team's going 5-11 and then the last 2 months are irrelevant, there's reason to dig in. But there was always reason to dig in because Dan Snyder was at the helm. And then, it was Vinny Serrato or it was Bruce Allen or whoever was the kind of de facto, in charge of football. There was reason to look at them askance and wonder how are decisions made here? And in those days, there were so many people who were miserable to be in the building, just coming to work. It wasn't just that they went, 5-11. It was that the place just was not a fun place to be. And I think, I hadn't thought about that tradition that you mentioned, and I think it's funny, but it's also true. I hadn't thought about it because I think we're still not in the honeymoon phase, because you can't be in the honeymoon phase when you've lost 8 games in a row and the season's totally off the rails. But I think if you were to take a measure of the fan base, they still have more faith in Josh Harris than the previous owner. They still have more faith in Adam Peters than the previous football people. They still, if it was Ron Rivera or Bruce Allen, and they still probably have more faith in Dan Quinn than, pick a number of coaches going back over time. So could we get to that kind of reporting if next year goes awry? Absolutely. I think that's important to do. I don't think we're quite there yet in year 2 of this regime.
I remember being on the Metro in October 2015, reading a printout of a lengthy multi-part series written by Barry Svrluga of the Washington Post on the Nationals' disappointing 2015 season. And what a mess that season ended up being. So I know that you know all about the time-honored tradition of the late season or end of season expose on one of our teams.
It's funny because that was the year they signed Scherzer, and Bryce Harper famously in spring training said, what was your reaction to signing Scherzer? It's where's my ring? And it did not work out under Matt Williams. And I had been assigned to do a behind the scenes thing, meeting with guys periodically over the course of the year, with the idea of like, if they're having a parade, we're going to be able to like say, this is how this all came together. It went the other way, and Jason Worth was ripping a lineup card off the wall and asking Matt Williams exactly when did you lose this team. So you report out what happens, and that's what happens. It was a fun series to work on for sure.
Final question, if I may ask you, as someone who knows the inner workings of the Nats well, what do you make of the state of the Nats with Paul Taboni as president of baseball operations, going in on analytics and sports science like never before?
Yeah, definitely like never before. I definitely think, the baseball operations side is kind of growing up and getting modernized. I think there is a little bit of disconnect, understandable disconnect between a new baseball operations department, or largely new, that arrives on the scene, takes stock in what is actually on hand in terms of talent, decides that evaluation doesn't match what the previous regime thought of it, and is clearly not amping up a return to competitiveness, but is, it seems like, retrenching and saying, from our perspective, this is year one of the rebuild. From the fans' perspective, it's year 6 of the rebuild. And that's going to be hard to take in the stands. I appreciate the direction that Taboni and his guys are going. I think it's the right thing to do. But I also understand that if you've endured this as a fan and been told, look, be patient, CJ Abrams is our shortstop of the future, Mackenzie Gore is an all-star, and now he's likely to be traded, like, that can be pretty tiring.
Outstanding. Barry Svrluga, columnist for the Washington Post. Barry, thanks a lot. All the best.
Thanks a lot, Al. Appreciate you having me.
The college football playoff is everything.
Toughness, growth, sacrifices.
Laser focus.
This is where I think deep.
Everything you got, all damn day.
The attention to detail is like none other.
Be physical, be violent. We are the winner.
Tulane takes on Ole Miss, followed by James Madison in Oregon.
It's time to bring it.
First round coverage of the college football playoff presented by Allstate. Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on TNT and HBO Max. Are you ready?
Let's go!
Getting more as a MyLowe's Pro Rewards member is easier than ever with the Lowe's app. Download it today and earn 500 points the first time you log in. Plus, your digital wallet helps you scan, save, earn, and access what you need to manage it all in one place. Download the Lowe's app and take advantage of your Pro benefits today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid 12/1/25 through 1/7/26. Offer valid for first login per organization only. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Additional restrictions apply. Visit Lowe's.com/terms for more details. Subject to change.
Well, a big win for Georgetown basketball. The Hoyas in their 2025-2026 regular season improved to 8-3 overall, including 1-0 in the Big East with a 78-69 win at Marquette on Wednesday night. Georgetown for this game was a 6.5-point underdog per multiple outlets, and yet won by 9 points. Georgetown overcame a 9-point first-half deficit. The Hoyas in the first half trailed 29-20. They won the rest of the game 58-40. Georgetown's defense was mixed. The Hoyas held Marquette to just 7 for 26 on threes, but allowed Marquette to go 20 for 38 on twos and have 16 assists versus 7 turnovers. So Georgetown shot poorly on threes, but otherwise was good offensively. The Hoyas went just 4 for 16 on threes, but also 23 for 42 on twos and 20 for 23 on free throws, and had 17 assists versus 9 turnovers. And Georgetown out-rebounded Marquette 41-30. Georgetown's leading scorer was 7-foot New Zealand native Julius Halaifanua. He, in 35 minutes as a starter, had 21 points, 6 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards, and 4 assists versus 1 turnover. He went 1 for 1 on threes, 6 for 9 on twos, and 6 for 7 on free throws. And 6'4" Rutgers transfer Jeremiah Williams. He started for the first time in this regular season as Hoyas head coach Ed Cooley had 6'4" Arizona transfer KJ Lewis come off the bench for the first time in this regular season. And Williams did really well. In 27 minutes as a starter, had 15 points, 5 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards, 5 assists versus no turnovers and 2 steals. He went 5 for 8 from the field, all twos, and 5 for 6 on free throws. So also, Georgetown remained without 6'5" Maryland transfer Deshaun Harris-Smith due to a personal matter. Also remained without 7'1" St. John's transfer Vince Iwuchukwu due to an undisclosed medical issue. Next up for Georgetown, home to Xavier, Saturday night at 8:30. A terrific ending to a terrific season for Old Dominion football. Old Dominion concluded a 2025 season in which the Monarchs went 10-3 overall with a 24-10 win over South Florida in the Staff DNA Cure Bowl at Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida on Wednesday evening. Now, South Florida went into this game with all kinds of coaching chaos off its head coach, Alex Golesh, leaving to become Auburn's head coach. That hiring was officially announced on November 30th. He replaced Hugh Freeze, who was Auburn head coach, November 28th, 2022 to November 2nd, 2025, off having been Liberty's head coach since December 7th, 2018. Also, ODU versus South Florida could have been a battle of two of the best quarterbacks in the FBS this season in ODU's Colton Joseph versus South Florida's Byron Brown, but each guy opted out of the game. Joseph on December 9th announced that he had decided to enter the NCAA transfer portal. Brown opted out of the game as he decides whether he'll declare for the 2026 NFL draft, enter the NCAA transfer portal, or stay at South Florida. And so ODU starting quarterback was Quinn Hennicle. He went just 11 for 25 for just 127 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions, and took 4 sacks, which totaled minus 31 yards in lost yardage and included a sack strip for a lost fumble in the first quarter. But Hennicle had 20 carries for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns when you take out the 4 sacks that he took. Also, ODU running back Devin Roche had 19 carries for 100 yards and had 2 receptions for 11 yards. And ODU's defense played really well. The Monarchs held South Florida to just 10 points, just 4.44 yards per play, and just 5 for 16 on third downs, and totaled 4 interceptions and 4 sacks. ODU's head coach is Ricky Ronnie. It on December 9th, 2019 announced the hiring of Ronnie as head coach, but his first game as ODU head coach was not until September 3rd, 2021, as ODU on August 10th, 2020 announced the cancellation of the school's fall athletic season because of COVID. So took a while for the Ricky Ronnie era to truly get going for ODU. ODU last season went 5-7 overall, including 4-4 in the Sun Belt Conference. But ODU this season went 10-3 overall, including 6-2 in the Sun Belt Conference. Got to at least 9 wins in a season for the first time since the 2016 season, and concluded the program's first undefeated season at home since the 2016 season. 3 FBS teams from the state of Virginia all have had really good seasons: James Madison, Virginia, and Old Dominion. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Friday show, episode 1222. We'll have much more on the Washington Commanders. In-depth preview of their game against the Philadelphia Eagles at Northwest Stadium on Saturday evening at 5. Also on Friday's show, college football. In-depth preview of number 12-seeded James Madison at number 5-seeded Oregon on Saturday night at 7:30 in the first round of the college football playoff. As I'll speak with Jack Fitzpatrick, co-host of the JMU Sports News podcast and co-creator of the very popular X account at JMU Sports News. Also, I'll have a Goldilocks pick for you for the game. And on Friday's show, we'll talk Washington Capitals and Washington Wizards. The Caps are home to the Toronto Maple Leafs Thursday night at 7. The Wizards are at the San Antonio Spurs Thursday night at 8. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll talk to you on Friday.
What I'm trying to do is be as honest as I can, and I don't normally do that.
The college football playoff is everything.
Toughness, growth, sacrifices.
Laser focus.
This is where I fit deep.
Everything you got, all damn day.
The attention to detail is like none other.
Be physical. Be violent. We are the winners.
Tulane takes on Ole Miss, followed by James Madison in Oregon.
It's time to bring it.
First round coverage of the college football playoff presented by Allstate. Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on TNT and HBO Max. Are you ready?
Let's go!